up, you guys? Marty Schwartz here with Marty Music, and I'm going to do a lesson on bar chords, bar chord tips, the concepts behind them, how to play them better, how to get into playing them. It's definitely one of those kind of humps that break from super beginner to beginner and intermediate, is being able to play bar chords. So I actually have an entire course that teaches you bar chords, a very multi-hour long course that's totally free. So if you're trying to get better at bar chords, this course will definitely do it for you. It's totally free in the link in the description. But in the meantime, I'm going to give you a bunch of tips right now. So here we go. So like I said before, I have an entire course on how to play bar chords. It's totally free in the link down there. But let's look at the concept first. Bar chords are like the open chord shapes, mainly the E major and E minor, A major and A minor to begin with. But instead of having the open strings, and this is called the nut right here that kind of starts all your open notes, instead you have to use your index finger as a movable nut to move up the entire range and then play one of those shapes I mentioned, like E shape, E minor shape, A shape you have to play with your third finger flat across, and then the A minor shape. So a good way to look at that, to know what actual chord you're playing, major and minor, is if you find the root note on the E string, then you plug in a corresponding E major or minor shape. So if I said E, F, G, A, B, let's go for B. So that's a B note on the E string. So if I want to play a B major shape, I'm going to bar right there and to play B major chord right here, I'm going to bar it and play an E major shape. So my index finger comes across, and then these fingers form what looks like a normal E, but I'm using these fingers. So that is a B major. That doesn't B major I picked because it doesn't have an open chord voicing for B major. Another one that you may come across would be like B flat major, and you would just move it down a half step. If I move it down another half step, it's A major, and you're like, wait, but I know this A major. Same chord, different voicing. Check it out. It's the same chord, just laid out a little differently on the neck and in a different spot. So let's go back to B. That's the 7th fret E string. If I wanted to play B minor, I found the root on the E string, so a corresponding E shape. If I want B minor, then that has to look like E minor now instead of E major. So the middle finger comes off, and I'll push it up against my index finger for just extra strength. So that is a B minor chord. Now let's talk about B minor for a second. A B note is on the A string on the 2nd fret. So open A, up a whole step to B. So if I want to play another way to play B minor, the same chord, but a different voicing, it's called. If I want to play that right here, I found the root on the A string, and I want to play B minor. So I'm going to bar across and make this look like an A minor shape. So those are two different ways to play B minor. Now what I'm doing when I'm playing the root on the A string bar chord, I'm letting the tip of my index finger mute the E string. So I'm just going for. So that's B minor, A root, A minor shape. If I want to play B major right here, I have to take my 3rd finger and make it look like an A major shape. B right here. And so that's B major. So just to reiterate, you find the root on the E string, you plug in an E shape, E major or E minor for major or minor. If you find the root on the A string, you plug in A major shape or A minor shape to play major and minor. And there are certain chords like B major, B flat major, the sharp and flat chords. There are no open version of like F sharp minor. I'll just throw that out there right now. F sharp minor. How would we play? And I'm going to give tips on how to actually play the bar chord cleanly, because that's a challenge. One of the big obstacles breaking through from super beginner to beginner intermediate is being able to play bar chords. So one that you may come across would be F sharp minor. So it's like a formula. It's like a math formula, except that we'll actually use it in real life. So F sharp minor. That means I have to find an F sharp note as its root on the E string or the A string to begin with. So F, open E, half step to F, so there's F, whole step to G. So F sharp is a half step higher than the natural note. So if that's F, then that is F sharp. Now you could also call it G flat. So G flat and F sharp are the same note. So if I'm looking for an F sharp minor chord, I found the F sharp and I found it on the E string. So now I have to plug in an E minor shape. So that's F sharp minor with the root on the E string. If I wanted to make that F sharp major, I just make that shape an E major shape. So that's F sharp major, F sharp minor. So now if I want to play F sharp minor with the root on the A string, then I find the F sharp on the A string, and I'll just count up from open A, whole step to B. B to C is always a half step. Whole step to D, whole step to E, and then E to F is always a half step. So here's F, 8th fret. F sharp is a half step up from the natural note. So that's F, so that's F sharp. Let's hear how it matches up with that other F sharp, which is called an octave lower, but it's still an F sharp. Same note, octave up. So if I want to play F sharp minor, I'm going to bar across that 9th fret A string and play an A minor shape. So that is now F sharp minor with the A root. Here's F sharp minor again with the E root. Now if we make those shapes major, then we'd have F sharp major. And F sharp major would be the A major shape here. And so that also shows that it is important, I think, to know your notes, your note names on the E string and the A string, because you're going to plug in chords and find chords that way. But you're also going to plug in scales for melodies that way as well. So if I see F sharp minor, I'm going to also plug in a scale that fits there too. So that is very important. Okay, so now to the part where you're like, well, yeah, I understand that, but when I try and play a bar chord, I can't press hard enough. You know, it doesn't ring out clearly. And one thing I'll tell you is that you just have to keep playing them where they aren't sounding perfect to get the reps in to where it gets a little, you might not realize it, but every time you try it, like let's say you try F sharp minor and it's like, it's not ringing out well, you got to do it that way so it improves a little bit every time. And it's going to be very tiny little improvements that you may not notice, but you have to do the repetitions to get your hand strength and to eventually get your hand in the right position and get it more fluid. But here are some tips that you can do that will really help, I find. You've got two components to the bar chord. You've got the pressing of the finger, the index finger, to press down like the nut. So you've got that. Then you've got the shape that you've got to form. And then you also have to have enough strength to be able to press it all down and have it ring out. So I'll talk about F sharp minor. One really good tip that I find from teaching and playing, teaching for over 20 years, and I taught thousands of one-on-one private guitar lessons with students before I ever made a video. So I really was a guitar teacher before YouTube. I wasn't a guitar player who decided to make lessons. I was actually teaching guitar for a living. And then YouTube came out and I started using it. And so what I find is if your hands are kind of out here, it's not it's not good for bar chords. And proper technique, whether it's classical or just playing in general, pop music, anything, your fingers want to be more parallel to the frets, not diagonal, but parallel. And so if you look at my elbow here, right? Look, when my fingers go parallel to the frets, you look at my elbow starts moving in, right? So one thing you want to look for is your elbow hitting the tip of your rib cage will put your hand in a more correct position. That doesn't make your hand strong enough, but you want that elbow to move in towards your rib cage. So look for that when you're trying the bar chord. Not out here, in here. Another thing is when you're playing like a minor bar chord, like with the E root, your middle finger can press up against your index finger for extra strength right there. So now you have the strength of 2 fingers for this particular type. And a good progression would be like F sharp minor to E major, which is a lot of songs, but I also think like the Beatles, Don't Let Me Down, Don't Let Me Down. So elbow against the rib cage. When you're playing this kind of voicing, use 2 fingers to help press down there and then form the shape. So F sharp minor is a pretty good first bar chord to work on. F sharp minor to E major, that's a good practice. F sharp minor to A, F sharp minor and D. Those are all great, so try that. And then another thing, like if you're playing the E major shape, well, one, you don't have to press as hard because these fingers are covering up most of the strings you need. Like if you don't hear the high E or B, but you get that root, and you're not hearing that, you're already playing the right chord, and eventually if you can press down hard enough, you'll hear the other. But if you're not pressing hard enough, you're still getting the notes you need. Oops. Almost like a glorified power chord. So that's one thing. Another thing is when you're working on these chords, there's 3 little fingering tips besides the elbow to the rib cage. One thing you do is when you're forming a chord like this, do it one time where you do the bar first. Oh yes, real quick. You don't want to use the pad here of your index finger. You want to use the side. That's also part of the elbow thing. It will help with that, but you're not looking to do the kind of soft pad part because there's too much cushioning. Along the side of the finger is much harder, less, less meat, right? More bone, just really nice and hard. Actually, I have little, almost this entire line across my finger is calloused now. I've been playing so long, but you want to go for that harder part of your finger. Much easier to get a clean bar. So I'm not going like that. I'm actually using a little bit of the side of the finger there. So that's really important. In fact, I wish I would have mentioned that a little bit earlier in this video, but I am mentioning it and hopefully it's helping and you're with me. So that's one thing. So when you're working on it in the beginning, one time, do the bar first, then form the shape. Then the next time you practice it, do the shape first, then the bar. That's a little muscle memory. And then the third time, try the whole thing, and then keep the shape and take your hand off, and then put it back on and make the corrections you need to make. This is all to get the muscle memory for you to memorize the shape, and your hand and brain and muscles to memorize the shape as quickly as possible. So let's see. Let me just recap it all. Elbow to the rib cage, side of your finger. When you play the E minor shape, press your middle finger up against your index finger. When you play the major shape, bar, then the shape, then the bar, then the whole shape. Take it off and try and keep the shape frozen, and then put it back on. With the A shape, it's all the same thing. Bar it, then the shape, then the bar, then the whole thing. Keep the shape and put it back on, elbow against the rib cage. And then find songs that have just like one bar chord. There's quite a few songs that would be like, have a D in there, an A, B minor, and a G. And I'm not even thinking of one song when I do that. It's lots of different songs, use that. So that's a really, I think, a good one to throw in there is a B minor with D, A, and G. And you can come up with your own progressions with that. And then I also like F sharp minor with A major, F sharp minor, D, and F sharp minor with E. As opposed to songs that are all bar chords. When you're learning bar chords, it's great to get a progression in there that's all open chords with just one bar chord. So that's, just another helpful tip. So also get that free bar chord course. It'll go way in depth, more than this one video, but see where you can go with it. All right, I hope that was helpful. And remember, I've got that entirely free course, multi-hour long course on bar chords, how to play them, the concepts, tips, tricks to get them going, example progressions, and all tabbed and transcribed as well. Totally free. Get it in the link in the description. In the meantime, appreciate your support, supporting Marty Music, and I hope to see you again soon. See you later.